All right. So first of all, I'd like to just touch upon the topic very briefly. This is leadership in times of crisis, and I think you would very well understand what it means. But still, I'd like to say something first. Okay, so it was a bit of a glitch. Now it's working, I believe. Okay. So first of all, we talk about leadership. Now, about leadership, I think there's a misnomer, and many people actually believe into thinking that this is constrained and limited to a few people who are really special, who enjoy a certain level of authority or rank within a company, within an organization, within a team, wherever they are, who have certain business portfolio that they're responsible for, or maybe certain revenue responsibility, or certain number of people reporting into them under the structure. So I would like actually for you guys to change that concept first and just throw it away out of the window, because leadership is something which actually applies to all of us, irrespective of who you are. If you're a professional, if you're working in any particular context, you are actually a leader, and you have to, and you ought to actually come up to certain expectations as a leader. So the first takeaway over here is that leadership is non-exclusive. The second bit about crisis is that crisis comes in different forms and different scales. So it may be a health crisis like it is right now. It may be an economic crisis, maybe a financial crisis, maybe a social crisis, maybe something to do with your team, maybe a product crisis, maybe a category crisis, maybe a business crisis which is overall for the industry, or maybe it's just related to your particular organization or company. But it comes in different forms, and that we need to understand. The one important bit over here is that these crises, these are very hard to be predicted in terms of their magnitude and their impact. And what that then implies is that if you're not getting any sort of advanced warning for any particular crisis before it happens, then you have to be in your leadership mode all the time. And you have to have certain fundamental attributes of certain fundamental dimensions of leadership being active. And indeed, leadership is something which actually, it's visible all the time, but, in times of crisis, a leader is actually getting the opportunity to stand out. And that is, what actually differentiates an ordinary manager from a leader. So, crisis makes the leader stand out. Now, if we're clear about this particular topic over here, I'd like to just post a very basic question to you guys, and you just can maybe take 5 or 10 seconds and write down in the chat box. I'd like you to be engaged over here. Just give me a very basic answer. What do you think is the most critical leadership trait? Just write in the chat box whatever comes to your mind. Okay, trust. I can see trust. I can see assertiveness, crisis management. Wonderful. To be trustworthy, confidence. Yeah, keep them coming. Being humble. That's an important characteristic. Good leader. Being humble, active listening, vision, integrity, clarity, organizational skills, dedication, vision. Yeah. Leading with empathy. Lots of nice words. Effective as well, though. Decision making. Yeah. Being secure with oneself. That's an important one. Credible. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so thank you for your engagement. I just want to bring home the fact that all of these things, when you think about leaders, these come to your mind. And actually, when you read through all of these behaviors, or all of these different dimensions of a leader, if you like, you would actually come to understand that leader is something or leadership is something which is very, very complex. It is not as straightforward as having, one single behavior that you need to exhibit and demonstrate and just change it from time to time, and be a little adaptive to the situation at hand. But it actually is a whole system that you need to have, and you need to actually carry it in the form of a toolbox, if you like, and you have to be ready with it. And you're actually expected to exhibit all of those skills at the same time, according to the situation, and in combination as well. So when it comes to, and just keep that thought with you, and we'll come down to it when we come down to the Leadership Act and what are the actual requirements in this particular crisis situation from a leader. Before that, we just look at the big picture, and I'll just like to paint it for you over here. Just take a minute on that, and then we come down to the Leadership Act, which is actually what a leader is ought to do or is expected to do in these kinds of situations, and to drive their team through. Okay, so coming down to the big picture. Now, this is really important because this is where you need to have an awareness around what is happening and what is the situation like, what is the feel of that particular scenario, and how broadly you're going to work your leadership. So first of all, there's an impact on business, right? So the sales are declining, the the top line, the bottom line, they're shrinking, and you're having a tough day at the business, right? So the graph is going downward. The other one is, you're having negative sentiments from your team. So it's about the people, they're showing fear, they're having despair, they're, confused, they don't know what to do, they're all over the place in terms of their anxiety. So these are the different reactions that they're going through. Then, of course, their mind also, gets triggered into thinking in all sorts of directions, and they're having all sorts of questions in their mind. They're popping up. And there's so many at the same time. There's like a bombardment, and you have to somehow as a leader figure out, and you try to answer them and try to console them, your employees, your teams, and your organization. Last but not the least, I would say that in the broader picture, your talk or your ideas are not enough. At the end of the day, you need to have a solid plan. You need to have something to work with. And I would say that until and unless people have something to do, they would just keep cooking maybe rumors, and that it's an evil's workshop. So you have to come down to certain actions that you can take so that you can get yourself on track to make things better. So that's a big picture, and this is all what we would want to elaborate as we go through the course of this particular session and presentation. And how do we actually solve it? So there's a Leadership Act that I've put together for you, and this is something that I really feel very passionate about, and this is something that we really can use it to our best ability and come out of such kind of a situation. Okay, so one may argue that it would be some science, some convolution of formulas coming together, delivering an equation, or maybe some also think that it's kind of an art, and maybe very abstract, something that will do good. But however you think it is, it basically boils down to a key number of areas that you'd like to consider and explore and then implement. So at the end of the day, it boils down to the actions that you're prepared or you're ready to take. And that is why very deliberately I've called it the Leadership Act, and not anything else like a theory or whatever ideology, etc., etc. This is a Leadership Act that we have to put together and execute. And when I was actually thinking and coming down to it, I said to myself, actually, my God, this framework is really crazy. And to be honest, this is not just an expression, and in fact, this is a clue into figuring out these key dimensions that we want to have as a leader. And these are those dimensions. So M is for mindset, G is for goals, T is for team commitment, F is for framework, I is for innovation, C is for communication. So these are all the things that you need to have, then you need to address if you're a leader and you need to take your company through it, right? So let's just go further and look at these dimensions one on one and see what they have to offer. Okay, first of all, we start with mindset. Now, mindset is something which basically forms the foundation, and this is what really is important, which is at the core when we start with a leadership act. And over here, I think the quotient that really counts is the adversity quotient. And you must be hearing about different quotients, which are the EQ and the IQ, but over here, it's all about the adversity quotient and how resilient you are through such times of crisis. And how you define this adversity quotient is along these lines. So you've got core, which is C for control, O for ownership, R for reach, E for endurance. And these are the things that like to polish up and really want to execute to the fullest if you want to have a positive mindset. And that is all about the demeanor that you want to have, because at the end of the day, if you're not showing positivity, if you're not kind of trickling it down, then you're not doing a good job with it. So the first thing that you have to do is to give people that hope. And as somebody very famously said that leader is a dealer in hope, and that is very rightly said. So this is about that hope that we want to give out. So first of all, the control. Now, control is all about focusing more inward rather than outward. Think about what you can do in the situation rather than what the external environment is impacting. What is it doing to inhibit all of your thoughts, all of your actions? What are the obstacles, if you like? So those kind of things, you need to just put them on a side, and you need to think in a focused way what you can do in this particular situation, and be more action oriented. And if you look at the circles, I mean, the circle of control is something that you have to be more focused in, and then try to expand this circle of control towards the outside, and maybe take up the circle of influence completely. Because what happens is that when you create some positive demeanor, start working towards your direction, you are also beginning to influence others around you, and that basically turn things in your favor, and the overall environment just starts to become more and more full of hope. So that is what needs to happen over here. You just work on the controllables, and as somebody also said that if you're able to take care of the controllables, you also give yourself a very good chance of actually doing something about the uncontrollables also, because at the end of the day, it's a ripple effect, and people start turning in your favor, start kind of supporting you, and it's a whole domino effect that you will realize and you will understand. So that is really magical. The next bit is ownership. Now, ownership is all about making people understand what is the gravity of the situation, what let them feel the heat, let them feel the pain, let them understand what the new reality is, and what is going to be the future like, if you like. And there, once people understand and have a better picture of what all is happening, they would be able to then step to the challenge and take responsibility, take charge, and that is what you need to do. I mean, you cannot be a silo worker over here. You have to have your support around you, and have the whole organization working in one particular direction that you want to lead into. So this is really important. And the next bit is reach. Now, reach is all about how adversity can reach and penetrate into your soul. You have to stop it from polluting yourself, and you have to really keep yourself clean. and sane, right? You have to be an optimist. So look at the glass half full, then half empty. Look at the solution, look at the opportunity, not the problem. I mean, that is the kind of optimism that you would want to have as a leader. And then, last but not the least, you've got endurance. We all need to understand that we're in it for the big run. I mean, it's a marathon rather than being a sprint. So you need to conserve yourself. You need to have that stamina built so that you have that kind of resilience going, because you have to take your team forward as well. So these are the important elements, if you like, if you come down to the adversity quotient or come down to building your mindset. Now, the next dimension for all of us, this is about goals. Now, you can also call it, I mean, according to your own context, you may call it only goals and maybe goals and strategy. But this is what needs to be rethought. And these goals or strategy, these are nothing unless they're unified, which means that people are onboarded. People actually agree and they stand with you when you are formulating those goals, when you are actually stating those goals, when you are setting those goals. People need to be with you, right? So it doesn't have to be a one-man show. And the four E's, which are really, really important when it comes to these goals or the process, that is engage, energize, evaluate, and ethos. Now I'd start with engage first. And so what really engagement means. Now, this is not about having people involved from the top. This is about the larger organization. And we're talking about these days the organizations which are very rich in terms of data and information. I mean, there's wealth of data which is available on different systems, on different data centers, in different touch points, maybe in people's minds, through all the interactions which are happening day to day. I mean, you're not the one who, as a leader, is interacting with customers all the time. Your ground teams are there who are actually facing the customers, who exactly know what is happening. So you have to actually tap on those sources and you have to actually bring them in when it comes to goal formulation or strategy rethinking. And I also want to give you a brief example over here, and this is a very relevant one. And I just want to show you how engagement is important, and which is actually one of the examples from my own career. I was part of a big workshop which had about 35 participants, and we were up against a problem which was to be solved. It was really complex, and the leader at that particular time, he was a senior executive. He came up with this approach. He basically posted a question and asked them, what different options do you think are going to solve this issue? So people actually came up with different inputs, and they said, okay, this can be done, that can be done. You may approach it this way and that way. And in about half an hour we had 4 to 5 distinct solutions to that problem. So they were there on the chart paper, and we were looking at it. So the next question that that particular leader, he asked, okay, now I want to ask you to detail the positives and the negatives for all of these options. And then people start talking again. They were contributing how the pros and cons were in each particular case, and they were really thorough in their inputs and in their feedback. So the chart actually got full, and we had really good information in front of us. And then the leader, he said next was really interesting. He said that you must have appreciated by now that this problem is a complex one, and you must have also understood that no particular solution is right or wrong. So now what you've got to do is have faith in me. I'll come back with my management team with a decision, and we will implement it. And believe me that, in the next 2 weeks, those people, those teams were working, and then, we had the decision stated out, and we were all happy because the process was such where, there was high engagement, people were involved, people knew that they were heard, and their inputs were there in the process of, coming up with the solution and with the decision. So it's really important to engage. And the next one that I want to come down to, that's energize. Now here, you know you can always have, some catalysts, some agents that actually can support you. People who are flag bearers, who can right away stand up and support you and bring some sort of positive momentum. They're much needed in this kind of a scenario, and you can get that support, you can seek that support. Let people, be volunteers and come up to the challenge. So energize energizing the workforce, energizing the teams around you is really important. And if they internalize the situation, if they really understand what is going on, people are really up for you and they will give it their best shot. The third one is evaluate. Now when it comes to evaluation, it is all about deliberating openly. You be as critical as you want, because this is the time. I mean, you challenge the different, hypotheses. You debate amongst one another. You ask questions. Whatever that you need to do, you should. But then once the decision is made, then there's no looking back. And I still remember there was an instance when, one of the one of the CXOs, he actually write down this email to his head of department saying that, this is something that we are going to be implementing in 2 weeks. And it was a fairly, straightforward case for my own liking. And he, did the basic number crunching and just emailed that, included it as well in the message. And, just let people absorb it and ask them if, they've got any opinion. They should just speak up or forever hold their peace. And I think that this was a brilliant approach, because it was a very obvious solution to a problem. In fact, one of the industry players, it had already implemented it, and we saw that there was clear value in taking that decision. So once that was implemented, we said, wow, we were engaged, we were part of the process in a way that we were told, we were given that opportunity to evaluate it. And if we had any comment or feedback, we could do that, we could give that forward. And it was just done very, very, in an agile way and in a brisk way. So that is the way, you create an environment and you take different decisions when you're in leadership. And one of the attributes, or one of the things that I would like to talk about over here is the drama triangle, that you may be familiar with this, but this is really interesting. We're talking about committing to a decision, and once agreeing, then not looking back. And of course, the assumption is that you have really assessed it in a thorough way, and you have actually weighed the pros and cons of this. You've already done that. The discussion is done, the evaluation is done, the decision is made. Now the execution is in process. Now in that phase, if you start having doubts and start creating confusion, maybe because of even valid issues, but those issues were there even before the decision was made, when you were having that chance to discuss openly as well, you actually become sort of a victim. And then at the same time, when you're being a victim, you're maybe are in a sorry state, are having some sorrow, some pity. At the same time, the hero, which is normally the management, or normally the somebody who's sponsored by the management, he would, or he can actually also perceive you as being a villain. So actually, you keep toggling between the victim and the villain in the eyes of the hero, which is really a difficult state to be in. And this is something which is completely uncalled for and totally to be avoided, I would say. So commit to the decision. Don't look back. You've already done your thought process, your analysis, whatever that you could do. You've done it, and now you're past that point. So don't fall for this toxic conflict triangle or the drama triangle, right? Because like in those arcade games, once the hero looks at the villain, peeking out, looking at you, he just fires those bullets. So you would be killed. So don't go for that. Okay, the last but not the least are the ethos. Now, ethos are those core principles, those guiding principles that you would want to have within your team, within your organization, within your division, within your department, whichever team unit you're looking at. And these are, I can't stress this enough. These are not the company values, because company values are, are maybe those behaviors, those attitudes which the company is already, feeling highly about. They're already exhibiting those, and those are very generic. These ethos are specific to the situation, to the team, and these need to be laid out very clearly, and one should not completely ignore those, because these are a lot about reality. Now, at this point, um, I have a very small question to ask you guys, and we can do a poll for that. Alia, if you can assist me over here. There's a poll on ethos. If you can just send to our participants, and they can attempt that. Okay, so here are the results. Perfect. So 60%, most of you have said that we should look at how we recognize and appreciate each other. 55% have said how we discuss and exchange feedback. Interesting. 50% how we collaborate, and then 45% each is about how we reach complex decisions and how we implement the agreed actions. Brilliant. Okay. So this just kind of gives you a picture of how do you actually implement certain rules or certain code that would become basically a norm for your employees to follow and to implement as a key living guideline. Now, let me just move forward. Okay, the next one we have is team commitment. Now, you must have heard teamwork makes the dream work, and it's so true, because again, it's a collaborative world. We've just seen, how we value collaboration. It's an important thing that we need to have also in the ethos. And of course, there, you have different dependencies because the data is distributed. The decision making has gotten complex, and there's so much information to process. You have to rely, and you have to, basically bring people together when it comes to this whole process. And here, I'd like you to actually look at each of these units as key areas if you want to build your leadership. So first of all, you do set clear expectations and KPIs. Now, this is not about micromanaging or anything. I mean, we all understand what gets measured gets done. That's a universal reality. You have to follow it, and so you have to actually somehow do it, and this is the vital thing. So have clear expectations as to what teams, what individuals have to do if they need to basically go towards or drive towards the company goals or the company direction. The next bit obviously is the KPI. The KPIs are just kind of showing you how those different metrics are moving, how the needles work. So that is very important for you to actually monitor and to see, how you're going wrong, how you're going well, and what are the areas of opportunity. Have progress conversations again, way to actually discuss that particular performance. And gone are the days, when you used to have 6 monthly or yearly dialogue with the employees and you talk about, their performance. But it's now getting more frequent. You have to have those ongoing conversations going. I mean, you don't have to have elaborate sessions lined up for that. I mean, those are also required. You maybe do those every 2 months or so. But then even in between, you have those chats, you have those, quick feedback meetings, maybe stand-ups, maybe some, team meeting, show them, what it's all about, how the performance is moving, ask them, what are the reasons for performance or non-performance, if you like, and then, what they can actually do and how can they contribute towards, improving the overall state of affairs. So this is important. And then it is about recognition and reward. And this is also actually this was the top scorer in the ethos as well, how we recognize and reward each other. Because if you're not differentiating between the good and the bad, I mean, people are not going to be encouraged. People look for reinforcement. And I mean, it doesn't cost you to give it thumbs up and give them maybe a pat on the back, or maybe saying good work, good job done, keep it up, all of that. This is maybe minor bits, but you have to do this. You have to make it as part of your regular practice, and that basically builds your leadership persona. In terms of recognition and reward, the one important bit also I would like to talk about is that you try to recognize in public and reprimand in private, and that is extremely important. And if you just want to maybe understand a bit more, just think about your child. If your child would have the most natural of reactions that he can come up with. So if you scold your child in front of somebody else, the two possible reactions he can come with: either he would just you know be so embarrassed that his spirit will go to rock bottom, and he will just be so low that he won't like do anything, and he would not be interested anymore. And I don't know how long that kind of state persists, but this will be one reaction. The other reaction could be that he turns rebellious, and he does exactly the opposite of what you've told him to do. So at the end of the day, what you need is your feedback to work. And for that to happen, when you're particularly interacting with mature people and professionals, you have to be spot on with your attitude. And also, I believe that here you have to work with beliefs rather than you work with behaviors, because if you work with beliefs, that has a much more lasting impact than if you work with the behaviors. I mean, you may just force one's behavior, but that would not be permanent. If you work with somebody's belief and really inculcate that into the DNA of that particular person, that would be something which you would carry with him, and that is something that you would value and cherish. So, and the next thing is developing people. So when it comes to developing people, it's all about giving people the opportunity to take up bigger challenges, to come up with their contributions in complex situations. Let them handle the beasts. Coach them. I mean, ask them where you want to help people. Ask them how would they want to move forward. What do they think as an option? How can they maybe reduce the uncertainty? How can they maybe think of a better solution? What are the factors, or what are the different perspectives they're looking at when they're working out the problem? I mean, those are the things that you need to kind of let people think along, right? and let them do things on by their own hands. And this is where developing people is so important. You have to be a giver over here rather than a taker. And at the end of the day, and you understand that people work for themselves, and it's not some cliche statement. It is actually real, and people, although they're employed by the organization, they're working for themselves and for their families. And if you're not caring about them, if you're not thinking about people's growth, then at the end of the day it's all futile. And once the person gets a better opportunity, or gets to work for a better organization, he would right away switch. So you need to kind of have that enabling environment for things to be conducive, and people to be liking their work and to be liking their organization. The last bit over here is assigning mentors. Now you have a lot of experts around, and they have their own experiences that they can share. Use that. When you assign mentor to anyone, he does feel that kind of privilege, that he's getting access to somebody in an exclusive way, in a formal way, and he's actually getting that chance to learn more and to be a better individual, be a better professional that he would be. So think about all of these elements when you're working within the team commitment frame. Now moving forward, the next one I'd like to talk about is focus. Now focus is something which is really important. You basically scan through your revenues, your activities, and your costs, which are very, very functional and boring at times as well. But this is something which is also important. So you look at you have to look at your segments, you look at your product, you look at the business model and channels that you want to sift through, and then you want to prioritize. At the end of the day, you have to pick out which ones carry the most value, and maybe just leave the others back. And again, the value needs to be along both tangible as well as intangible, and strategic as well. So think in that way. The next one is the activities. Now activities, you may just argue saying that this is something which does not cost me anything, but then at the end of the day, anything that you do, it will consume time, and time is a valuable resource. So you have to be very careful. You have to invest time rather than spend time. So use it very consciously. Last but not the least, we have the costs. Now costs, again, you look at the income statement, you look at the balance sheet, an accountant can do it very well, but then you link up with the business value that they are generating. Look at what are the non-essential items that you maybe you just want to get rid of. Maybe you can outsource some things. Maybe something is not your capability and not to be developed as a capability in a strategic way. So just leave it out. So you have to really go into that assessment mode and challenge yourself as to what would you like to do and what you would not. And these are just some of the frameworks that you can work with. Very briefly, the prioritization. These are different perspectives. At the center are the customer needs. Then you look at your own business value, that you can read through it. The competition, how is that working out in the overall landscape? The partners, they are obviously part of the value chain. You can look at how they're coming in to the equation. The risks, it could be the external environment, the regulators, or anything else for that matter, maybe environment. Those are again the factors which are important to be understood. The three circles approach is very important. You need to look at the customer, the company, and then you have the competitor. And the area A is something which is most valuable, and that is basically where you have your own point of differentiation, and you would like to actually expand this area as much as you can, and maybe eat up the G space completely, or maybe just knock your competition out. So you can think along these lines, and you can come up with what you want to do. And then obviously you would like to prioritize, maybe use this kind of a matrix mapping out the cost effort on one axis and business of value on the other, and come up with what you want to do again. And maybe some things like the maybes or not worth the effort may, to be left out, and prioritize in that way. So this is about challenging yourself and making sure that you optimize the resources the best you can. The next one is innovation. Now innovation is again a dimension which is extremely important, and it really can create value. And when is the timing right for innovation? I mean, there are different symptoms, but the few ones that I've been able to list down, there can be complacency or reactivity. There can be disregard for new entrants. You may be losing touch with your customers. Maybe the business model has its own inertia, and you're just stuck with it. And you're maybe having an incremental mindset, and nothing new is coming. So this is a situation when you think that there needs to be some disruption, needs to be something new that should happen. I mean, you should feel some unease to find something new, which should carry you along. And in order to make that happen, the mindset that is really important over here is the growth mindset, which is the blue one. And it's all about taking things positive, because at the end of the day, I mean, the world is changing fast, and you're no more the expert of everything, right? It's not a traditional business that you're running the way you were running it earlier. You have to rely on a lot of sources and a lot of data, and it's all about companies and players coming together, in the form of a shared economy, right? So here you should experiment. You should actually fail fast, lean forward. Take that as a whole learning experience, and take that as an opportunity for your own growth, and that is how you basically build your innovation cycle. And how to enable all of that, and how to make people use the growth mindset more. Obviously there are some enablers. There you obviously need to have a collective approach towards things. So don't think me or what's in it for me, rather than think about the overall business, how the business is going to gain from a particular solution. Be honest and open, right? You should not have any hidden motivations or agendas over here. Be transparent there. Encourage healthy debate. you know Discuss what you think. Do challenge. Ask the right questions. That's very important. If it's becoming too easy, then it's not maybe going right. So you have to somehow instigate some debate, and generate some constructive dialogue. I would like to say that avoid the group think, avoid the hippo effect. The group thing, we all know what it is. People just start following somebody who's maybe having a big mouth, or talks the most. And the other thing is the hippo effect, which is the highest paid person's opinion. Now, it's not about hierarchy, right? It's about people having their own experience, having their own data and insights with them that they can share, and that's all very valuable to put on the table, and then look at it before you make decisions which are far-reaching. And then at the center of it, we have remember the customer. I mean, don't just throw him out of the window. He's also in the room sitting with you, because at the end of the day, whatever that you will do is should be in the interest of the customer, and that is where you actually create or gain value. And this is the last one, which is about communication. Now, we all know how communication is important, and it's all about creating a trust in the organization, and that is so very important, because at the end of the day, I mean, the start at the end, where I started with mindset and now I'm ending with communication. These two are cardinal when it comes to having an organization move forward in a crisis. So what you want to do, and this lady, I think, is a really good image of a great communicator, who did not even reach out. She was transparent. She was ready to listen, to understand. using different mediums also helps. I mean, you go ahead, you have coffee, you have small chats, discussions. Those also kind of help people open up. You have to be genuine about it. You have to be authentic about it. And people very very smart. They figure out what's true and what's not. So you just be who you are, and basically let them understand what it is. And this is what communication is all about. So you have to be there and over communicate. Last one, I mean, I can't emphasize it more than this. You just have to have a continuous loop. Keep touching, keep reaching out, keep interacting, because that has a lot of impact. People feel that they're heard, and they're being listened, and whatever that you would then do as a result, of course, is also as a consequence. And um, it all basically creates positivity around. So this is so very important, which is a communication bit here. And last but not the least, for you to end the session, I will just display this. So leadership cannot really be taught; it can only be learned. And you'll just be wondering then what we were doing maybe in the session, and what was the use. So, well, it's not about that, but it's about the concept that once you have those tools, once you understand these are the things that you need to work with, unless you practically implement and take them forward in your everyday life, you will not be able to master them. As long as it's a theory, it will remain a theory. It will never come into practice, and you may, I'm afraid, not be able to move up the leadership curve. So this is very important. Take it to your own organizational context, your team context. Try to implement these concepts. Try to understand the depth over here, and I'm confident, and I hope that things will work out for the better. So all the best to you guys. This is it from my side. Thank you.